good day, good evening everyone. Բարի լույս, բարի օր, բարի երեկո, աշխարհի բոլոր ծայրերում, all over the world. I waited for this event like an excited child for Christmas. A few months, weeks ago, a good colleague and a friend, Olivia Katranjan, the founder of Yalla, called me and mentioned about possibility of holding this wonderful, wonderful resources birthday together, celebrating Armenian Poetry Project's 15th anniversary. To say I was excited, it's an understatement. I've been a huge fan of Lola Kondakyan's work and her amazing poetry project for years and years, and to have an honor to talk about it and celebrate with everyone and with readers like we have today is just a special treat. And to work with two fantastic women who I admire greatly, Lola and Olivia, it just makes it extra special. Armenian Poetry Project, if you're joining us and you don't know it, I urge everyone, go and look at it. It's the most wonderful, the richest resource on Armenian poetry, the most inclusive place you'll find poetry in Armenian, in Western Armenian, Eastern Armenian, English, French, translations, Krapar, Middle Armenian, anything you like. It's constantly updated. It's incredibly well tagged, my personal thing about it. You can find anything there. It has about 3,000 posts, 200 audio clips, and Lola is updating it literally every day. So please go use it, read it, enjoy it, and most importantly, support it, because poetry and poets need a lot of support. So today is a birthday party. It's a bit of an unusual event. So I want everyone to be in a party mode. I have a glass of wine to raise to Lola and her 15 fantastic readers from all over the world. And they are going to share some of the poems Lola has picked. We'll hear from Lola herself, and we'll hear from Olivia as well, a few words about Yalla, another organization who is working with us today. But Lola, before we start, I want to ask a quick question to you. Is this what you thought Armenian Poetry Project will be 15 years ago when you started it as Dead Poets Society?
I had no idea it would evolve like this. That it would find so many readers, that there would be so much interest and collaborations all over the world. So I'm thrilled. Thank you for asking that question.
That's great. Can we agree now, while I've got you on spotlight, let's do birthday party not 15 years. Let's not wait for another 15 years.
Thumbs up.
Every year, every 5 years, and all our readers have to come back and read another poet. And I hope it grows bigger and richer and more powerful. But thank you for all the joy you bring us with this resource, Lola.
Thank you. I'll bake a cake next time.
I really hope next one will be online. We come and read the poetry we have at the Armenian Institute Library in person. We'd love to see you all there. So I'll stop here because we want to hear a lot of beautiful poetry. There will be a link we share in the chat line, and it will be in Facebook comments as well for everyone who is watching on Facebook. All the poems, almost all of them are translated into English as well, so you can read the other language, whichever language the readers are reading, you can check the other one. Everyone is on mute, but please talk to us in the chat line, keep in touch, email us, tweet us, talk to us. We love hearing from you. I'll stop here, and I'd like to invite Olivia Katranjian, a fantastic writer and the founder of Yalla, my absolutely favorite new organization, to say a few words about Yalla.
Thank you so much, Sato, for collaborating with us on this event. It's such a pleasure always to work with the Armenian Institute. I'm the founder of the International Armenian Literary Alliance, a nonprofit that supports the reading, writing, and publishing of Armenian literature. We are so excited for our first collaboration with the Armenian Institute, and we hope it's the first of many. I'm especially proud that today's event brings together 3 Armenian nonprofits run by women. And without further ado, I will hand the microphone over to Lola Kundakshan. Congratulations, Lola.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Tato. So good afternoon, and thank you for joining us in this celebration. To the International Armenian Literary Alliance and the Armenian Institute in London, thank you for an amazing year of collaborations. And we have a beautiful brochure that we'll be sharing on the chat line. All of the poems are there. There's one and some beautiful watercolors that were brought together by Anushka. Thank you, Anushka, for the design. The Armenian Poetry Project is an ever-growing presence on the internet. It has received close to 1,400,000 original, unique hits for its 2,840 poems to date, which include text and audio, as Tato said. In addition to our thousands of subscribed writers, there are blogger and Twitter followers as well, which is great. As I was preparing for this event, I shared with my colleagues these statistics. Readership geographically is mostly in the United States and Armenia. Even though the series is multilingual, mostly Armenian, French, and English, the top 10 poems are all Armenian, and one of them is actually in classical Armenian, which we'll read today. But there are also many hits from smaller regions of the world searching for Armenian poems, which is why I like to say they are the lonely and the curious reaching out to poetry. This list is long, but I must say heartfelt thanks, at least to you, our readers. You make it all possible. Your constant encouragement motivates the authors, the translators, and the teachers. I want to thank those who sent their books and notes, and the contemporary authors, many of them, for their permissions to post their poems. In particular, thank you to Dr. Levon Avdoyan, formerly at Library of Congress, now retired, for his assistance in researching books, to Theo Martin van Linde for his scholarship and help in acquiring texts, to Dr. Artsvi Bakhchinian for his scholarship and translations, to Professor Dora Shakalyan for her translations of Badur Sevag and her enthusiasm, to Professor Valentina Calzolari for her translations published in the series Patrimoine Littéraire, to Nancy Agapian, whose Gartal series kept the Armenian literary scene vibrant in New York City, to Per Vic, who introduced his grandfather Harut Kostantian in his work, to Catherine Fletcher and the editorial team at Ratapalax for inviting me to collaborate on a special feature on post-genocide Armenian poetry, to my poet friends worldwide, to the budding poets who send me emails and who participated in the first 3 anniversary poetry blasts and past poetry writing competitions, to the volunteer readers who contributed their voices in audio recordings, to the staff at Horizon Weekly's literary supplement in Montreal, the Aztec Daily's literary and art supplement in Beirut, the New York Public Library's Humanities Research Department, the Glendale Public Library, the Zoharab Center in New York, the HBU's Bibliothèque Nubar, and the Librairie Samoilian in Paris. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce today's readers. The first one is Harach Chilingirian.
Thank you, Lola, for this opportunity to bring us together on really an exciting birthday or anniversary, the 15th anniversary of the Armenian Poetry Project. Congratulations for this most wonderful project, which I believe has made Armenian poetry a vital part of our everyday life. And you have had an important and a critical role in making that happen, to bring out from the books, from the textbooks, from the classrooms when we were growing up, and putting it in our daily life so that we could enjoy this beautiful poetry that you've put together, but equally the poetry that you create and you write and give us to enrich our lives. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all this beautiful work that you're doing. And I'm doing the first reading by Bedros Turian. Many of you know, I'm sure, Bedros Turian is a very well-known Armenian poet, probably one of the youngest poets who is well-known but died at the age of 21. But the treasure, the collection of his poems have come to us throughout the generations. He is one of the most loved Armenian poets, especially in Western Armenian literature. I'm sure many of you have seen this photo of Bedros Turian, or a sketch rather, which was actually made 20 years after his death. He was so popular that the Armenian newspaper publishers, the intellectuals in Constantinople, they made sure that there is an image of Bedros Turian to be remembered for the generations to come. And they spent considerable time in working with artists, sketchers, to interview his mother, his brothers, and they came up with a sketch of Bedros Turian. Interestingly, in 1959, the Turkish government privatized part of the cemetery where he was buried, and his remains were removed in 1959, and his skull was taken to the Armenian Patriarchate. It's a long and very interesting story, but eventually in 1969, his remains were taken to Armenia, the Soviet Armenia, and in 1972, a physician, Professor Antranik Jaranyan, recreated the image of Bedros Turian based on the remains of his skull that was brought to Armenia. And this is what you see, the doctor and the recreation of Bedros Turian's image. The poem I'm going to read in Armenian is called Hayuhin, the Armenian woman. And it's a beautiful story, or the scene is Bedros Turian is on the boat returning home to Üsküdar from the European part of Istanbul, taking the ferry and going to Üsküdar, and this is what happens on the boat as he goes home. You will see the English on the screen. Աշնան մեջ էր երեգոմը վերաթարցից Հյուսկիդար, օդը բարձ էր, հողմը մեղմիկ, ձովուն չուրերն ալ հանթարդիկ։ Շոքենավին սարավանթը նստած անգույն մարանցնագի, ու շատությամբ ես նույն օրվան լրաքիրները գարթայի։ Մեկ մալ հանգարց սանտուխեն վել ելնելու ոտնացայնմը, շփոթեցիս և աչկերս թարցուցի թևի հայն գողմը։ Հայուհի մեր վեր ելնոն, բարձրահասակ և քեղաթեմ, անցավ մոդես նե սիքաջեմ, նստավ անգույն մինչ թեմ առ թեմ։ Ո գարձեստե նե երկնային զվարթնուն մեր վար իջած, լույս սպրելու, սեր քուրելու, խրովելու սրդերն այրած։ Այլ չգիտեմ, թե ինչու գրգին աչքերս հարած, իմ թերթիկիս վրա միշտ, սիրտս էր ամբողջ խրոված։ Մինչև մեկնալ նավաստին, խրբոտ ցայնով մկալով մոտ, ըսավ, հասանք Üsküdar, այլ ինչ նստեր ես տուն հոտ։ Վեր վերցուցի աչքերս, ոչ ոք դեսի մեջ նավին, մինակ էինք երկուքնիս, Megnes Megnal Navastin.
Thank you, Haraj. Our next reader is Susan Patty.
Thank you, Lola. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this amazing anniversary party. I echo everybody else's congratulations, and it's been such a pleasure to know you over the years and now to get to jump in at the deep end, basically, and swim with all of you. Lola let me choose my poem tonight, and this one jumped out at me because although it was written over 100 years ago, it still is very appropriate today. Many things have changed, of course, but many things remain the same. So I think this is a very special poem. It's written by Shushanik Kukhinyan. It's called "I Want to Live." She lived between 1876 and 1927. The poem was written in 1907. For me, it's a little interesting side thing here that it was written by a Shushanik. It's translated by Shushan Avakian, and my alias is, of course, Shushan Chilingirian. I've got triple Shushans here. I'm going to read it in English, and the Armenian is in the program, which is in your chat line. I want to live. I want to live, but not a lavish life trapped in obscurity, indifferent and foolish, nor as an outright hostage of artificial beauty, a frail creature, delicate and feeble, but equal to you, O men, prosperous as you are, powerful and headstrong, fit against calamities, ingenious in mind, with bodies full of vigor. I want to love, unreserved, without a mask, self-willed like you, so that when in love I can sing my feelings to the world and unchain my heart, a woman's heart, before the crowds, ignoring their stern judgments with my shield and destroy the pointed arrows aimed at me with all my vitality unrestrained. I want to act equal next to you as a loyal member of the people. Let me suffer again and again, day or night, wandering from one place to another, always struggling for the ideal of freedom, and let this burden torment me in my exile, if only I may gain a purpose in this life. I want to eat comfortably, as you do, from that same fair bread for which I gave my share of holy work. In the struggle for existence, humble and meek, without feeling shame. Let me shed sweat and tears for a blessed earning. Let scarlet blood flow from my workers' hands, and let my back tire in pain. I want to fight. First, as your rival, standing against you with an old vengeance, since absurdly and without mercy, you turned me into a vassal through love and force. Then, after clearing these disputes of my gender, I want to fight against the agonies of life, courageously like you, hand in hand, facing the struggle to be or not. Thank you.
Our next reader is Tina Shakalyan.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Lola. I've been friends with Lola since Girl Scouts days, and I'm thankful that I'm invited to read. I used to recite when I was in my school, and now it's bringing me lots of memories to do it again. This time I'm reading. I'm reading Irma Ajemyan's, the title is Negara. A little bit, I think we should just say what we do. I'm a visual artist, and I'm also heading the Venice Biennale. I'm representing the Armenian Pavilion in the Venice Biennale, and we are doing it this year. So against all odds, we are persevering, and we are opening August 28th. For those of you who are interested, I'm sure we'll have lots of Facebook posts. This poem was dedicated to Erol Sarafian. I'll be reading the Armenian and the English version. It has two parts. The number one is An Borganegare. Senյակը ուր ամեն բան անշարժությամբ քարացած, արարգաներ իրենց աշխարհներուն խորերը, բաստարմը լերգ ու բրգված միադար, լույսի, մութի, հավերժական այդ նույն խաղին ագնքետ, Տուն գնստիս ու գշնչես, առանցին, տուն գկձես ու անհամբեր գսպասես, տուն գգենաս, գմդածես, գներգես, Գյանքի մահվան սահմանները ջեղքելով, հետո բահմլուր գմնաս, նման սարած սենյագիտ, կան շարժանաս, նոր գյանքի մձիլերուն թեմ անպարպար, երբ կդեսնես օդարոդի քու սենյագիտ ստվերներեն անբամած, երկու աչքեր լուսաճաճանչ բաստարեն թուրս կժպտին, այս այն բահներ, ուր ամեն բան իր լուրումին հասած է. An որ կնգարվի, եթե նույնիսկ նստիլ չուզես, թիգնատորին անշարժության մեջը թուն քու կիձերդ խարնաշպոտ գերտան մխվիլ բաստարի մխորության մեջ ագամա, քու քույներդ, լույսե անտին, ոլորտներու եզերքներեն սողալով, հանգարց կինան մատներու դակ հարաշարժ, մդածումներդ այնքան կախտնի, աչքերդ թուրս լուսարցագի ուղությամբ, Գերտան զոդվիլ աչկերու հետ կիսապախ, որոնք թեմքիտ պճիչներուն դակտակուն միս ոսկորդ գջեղկեն, ու վրցիններ իրարու հետ, իրարու կով գվազեն, երեք լայնքով դարածությունըտ անքթորեն մագերեսի վերածած, կհարվածեն կամ գշոյեն բաստարի մողորգ ու լերկ երեսը. Քեզ մե անտին թուն գշինվիս, քեզ մե անգախ թուն գխորիս, քեզ մե հերու թուն գշնչես, ամփոխչությունդ կհերանա, կնոսրանա հետս հետե, ցերկերովդ որքան գարչիս, աչքերովդ որքան կոծվիս, ալ թուն չես, թուն քեզ մե թուրս, ուրիշի մատներուն դակ կձնիս. The one who paints, a room where everything is motionless, objects wrapped up in their worlds, a canvas bare and stretched evenly, attentive to the eternal game of light and dark. You sit and breathe alone. You draw and wait impatiently. You stand, you think, you paint, breaking the boundaries of life and death. Then you are silent for a moment, like your studio. Quietly, you stir facing the emerging life on your canvas. When you notice, oddly, from the shadows in your studio, two sparkling eyes smiling from the canvas. This is the moment when everything is completed. The one who painted, even if you do not want to sit still in the armchair, your features will involuntarily merge with the depths of a canvas, your colors beyond the light, crawling from the edges of the spheres, suddenly transform under rapidly moving strokes. Your most secret thoughts bolt out of your eyes, like lightning merging with the half-painted ones, which hide under the cells of your face, separate flesh from bones, and the brushes running side by side, cruelly transform your three-dimensional body to a flat surface, hitting and stroking the smooth and bare surface of the canvas. You are rebuilt beyond your body. You think independently of yourself. You breathe away from your core, your whole being separating, gradually transforming. As much as you cling to your hands, as much as you enclose yourself, you are no longer you. You are outside yourself, reborn through another's art. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reader is Theo Maarten van Linde.
My name is Theo Maarten van Linde. I'm Kalust Gulbenkian, Professor of Armenian Studies in Oxford, and I mention this because my two predecessors have contributed a lot to making Armenian literature much better known in the world. The first of them is Charles Dowsett, who is present in the Armenian Institute because part of his library is now there. But he wrote a book about Sayat Nova with a lot of translations in it. Very interesting because if you look from one page to another, you can see that the same Armenian is translated, or the same Georgian, or the same pre-Azeri Eastern Turkish is translated in different ways for the same poem. So you have a lot of comparative material there. Robert Thompson, my direct predecessor, translated most of Armenian historiography and a lot of Armenian biblical commentary into English. And we will see some of the work that he has done later on. I'm going to read a poem by Bardasar de Pir, who lived in 18th century Constantinople. He was a poet, obviously, a composer, a scientist, a teacher and a printer, a leader in the national emancipation movement through his efforts in education and in printing. And in 1741, he was appointed by the famous Patriarch Jacob Naljan as headmaster of the Patriarchate's school. He compiled many textbooks for use in schools. And as printer, he published some very well-known works like Grigor Narekatsi's Matyan Vog Perkutian, the Narek, the Book of Lamentation. Further, the first printed edition of the great theologian Grigor Tatevatsi's Kirkhardsmans, the Book of Questions, and also a first imprint of David the Invincible Philosopher's Prolegomena to Philosophy, which was a standard text in the medieval schools up into the 18th century. And as far as poetry is concerned, apart from the Narek, he also published Arakel Shunetsi's Adam Girk, the Book of Adam. And one may find work by Bardasar de Pir translated in the second volume of the Heritage of Armenian Literature, one of the big volumes edited by four well-known Armenians, professors in academia. And Bardasar wrote poetry in the Ashur tradition, so the love poetry tradition, but he touched on more than love poetry alone. The poem I'm going to read is a love poem, and I think that we should read it as a symbol, as a token for of our gratitude to Lola for what she has given us in the Armenian poetry, for the lonely and what was it, Lola? I forget. The lonely and the...
I'll tell you later.
Very good, yes.
Lonely and the curious.
The curious, yes, how could I forget? Yeah. Ari im kartsrik aravni, voskichen zor zarmanali, eskes desnorin purierani, tu pariagir, tu yagir, yereftsar, ipru aref ins zaketsar, tsentsutun ins bargevetsar, tu bariega yagir, urachutun hoko imo, vochko benavin aransko, ovim aznif gera harko, tu pariekir, turdumei urachatsa, merialei gendanatsa, inzierani vorskestesa, tu pariekir, im sireli, im geraznif gerkoveli, im achats luis, im nazeli, tu pariekir, Pariekir. Come, my sweet little dove, amazing apple of gold, who sees you countless blessings hold. You are welcome, you are welcome. You who came, appeared, to me like the sun you emerged, gladness on me you bestowed. You are welcome, you are welcome. Joy for my soul? Not at all without you, O my noble, most respected one. You are welcome, you are welcome. Sad was I rejoiced. Dead was I revived. Blessed am I that you I behold. You are welcome, you are welcome. You are welcome, my beloved one, my most noble, most praiseworthy one, light of my eyes, my elegant one. You are welcome, you are welcome. The second poem is has already been mentioned by Lola. That is The Birth of a Hagen, which is probably, and now we are sure, the most famous piece of pre-Christian Armenian poetry. We have to thank Movses Khorinatsi for its survival. He complains, Movses, of the love of song and wine of the inhabitants of the province of Gorten in Nakhichevan, which luckily does not prevent him from quoting this ancient gem. This province's merry singing and dancing was a headache already for Mesrop Mashtots, who found no Christians there except the prince of the region, although Christianity had come to Armenia a full century before. It was one of the reasons he decided that the Armenians needed their own alphabet, in which they could write their own language, and hear the gospel preached in it and the liturgy celebrated. But this poem opens a window on a period that reaches far back into the depths of time. We catch a glimpse of the gods of Armenia before its Christianization, and this poetic gem is all the more precious for it. Yerkner yerkin, yerkner yerkir, yerkner yevtsoven sirani, yerken itzovun uner, yevskarmiken yerknik, und yeregan poch tsuch yelaner, und yeregan poch bots yelaner, yevi bot tsuin vazer chateash badanekik, nahur heruner, botsuner morus, jev achkunken ein aregakunk. Yerginke yergunki mecher, yergire yergunki mecher, Gerkner najev tiranakuin tsove, yergunke uner najev tsovun mech, garmerik yereknige. Yerekni poren zuchgeler, yerekni poren potsgeler, u potsin mechen gevazer chardeash badanegikme. An hurmazeruner, an najev potsma morukuner, u achkere arekakner nein. The birth of a Hagen. Heaven was in labor, earth was in labor, the purple sea was in labor. In the sea of labor, pain held the little reed. Along the reed stalk rose smoke, along the reed stalk rose flame, and from the flame leapt up a golden-haired little boy. He had hair of flame, he had a beard of flame, and his eyes were little suns.
Thank you, Theo. We're going to jump ahead to more contemporary poems, or rather modern poems by Arshak Chobanyan and Sibyl, read by Vasken Davidian.
Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure. It's such an honor to be part of this celebration of poetry on the 15th anniversary of the launch of the wonderful Armenian Poetry Project. Lola, you've given us a treasure. We are so grateful to you. I'm Vasken Davidian. I'm an art historian and cultural historian. Currently the Kalus Gulbenkian postdoctoral fellow in Armenian studies at the Oriental Institute, University of Oxford. The two short poems I shall be presenting are by two Ottoman Armenian intellectuals, not usually remembered for their poetry, but perhaps this should actually change. The first of the two, Hastagal Latoch, followed by a translation, May Your Dream Be Clear by Lola herself, is by Arshak Chobanyan. He was a teacher, a poet, a playwright, literary critic, journalist, translator, editor, and publisher, born in Beşiktaş on the European side of Constantinople in 1872. From 1895, Chobanyan made Paris his home as part of that wave of intellectuals, writers, and artists fleeing from the autocratic and anti-Armenian horrors of the Abdulhamid II regime. He is best remembered for his translation and scholarly work, and for launching the celebrated art and literary journal Anahid in Paris, published with intervals between 1898 and 1949. He died in Paris in 1954 following a car accident. Hystag ylatoch. Hystag ylatoch yerazet. Եվ թող դարդամը գաբույտ չխաղցնե միտքդ, ինչպես աշնան դերևը հողմաբդույթ, ապրե անգախ եւ ուժով, քու հոգիիդ համեմատ, եղիր կյանքի անդարին մեջ կանանչ ձարմը հաստարմատ, մի ցկեր սիրտդ ճուին երթալ զփալ տիպվածով, թեպի նպատակդ քնա, ինչպես քեդը թեպի ձով. May your dream be clear, and may the blue uncertainty not stir your mind like autumn fluttering leaves on the ground. Live free and strong, according to your spirit. Be in the forest of life, a green tree with strong roots. Don't let your heart go and accidentally float on the water. Pursue your dreams like the river flowing to the sea. The author of the second poem I shall be presenting was also a native of Constantinople. Born Zabel Khanjian in Üsküdar on the Asian side of the city in 1863. She wrote from an early age, among the earliest Armenian women to write poetry in the modern period, under the pen names Anahid, Oriot Alice, and most famously Sibyl. Zabel Asadur is today remembered firstly for her role as a founding member of the society Askanaver Hayuhiats and Gerutyun, the altruistic society of Armenian women, which was active between 1879 and 1895 and 1908 and 1915. And it was dedicated to promote the education of girls and to set up schools in the Ottoman Armenian provinces. And secondly, as an educator, and for her co-authorship with her second husband, Hrant Asadur, of highly acclaimed textbooks of Armenian language and literature. She died in Istanbul following an earlier stroke in 1934. I'm not sure why I'm actually giving you the cause of death, but here we go. I've written it, so I'm reading it. So Zabel Asadur's poem, Zovun, To the Sea, is a gentle meditative piece written on Kınala Island in the Marmara Sea in August 1912. It presents the poet sitting by her window, dreaming, absorbed in the silence of the dark night. Despite the sea lying before her, she is so distracted in her own thoughts that she can barely hear the sound of the waves. Yet she feels the silent tumbling of the water towards the infinite, boundless shores of the sea, and senses the secret contortions and the agitated and troubled animations of the sea's depth. The poet turns her gaze upon the depths of her own desperate yet inscrutable soul that, she says, so resemble those of the bottomless sea. Lucky you, O sea, she utters, that you can follow the wind wherever it will take you. Zovun. Mut kisherin leutian mech chorasuis, baduhanis archev nestats gerazem. Lainazaval zoven hon pervadze anhuis. Alikneru hedzunen haziv gelesem. Sagain geskam lur tavaluma churin, tebi anhun, tebi anzar apunkner. Anor kachni volorumner chorin, chrofk nanor alutskin mech yeruzer. Ugnaim im hokvuin chorn husahad, vor anhadag zovun ein kangenmani. Yeranikes gesem, odzov, vor azat gehedevis chovin, vor eskes gedani. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lola.
Thank you. Our next reader is Tato Ayvazyan.
Thank you, Lola. Because I forgot to introduce myself, I was so excited in the beginning. I will do now. I'm Tato or Tatevik Ayvazyan, and I'm the director of the Armenian Institute. So my first poem was assigned to me by Lola because she knows my love for Nahabet Kuchak and medieval Armenian poetry. And if you want to read something joyful, just go to Lola's site and search for Kuchak's poem. He lived in 16th century and he has most joyful, lovely, vivid, erotic poetry you can imagine. And Lola has given me something very funny about broken heart, which is being traded and bargained for. So I'll read the Middle Armenian version of it. It's called Srtika Semalul Yeger. Srtika Semalul Yeger, Ziramen Mulker Kutsache. Խոշյար, ամ, հարաճ կացիր, կամ կնե, կամ մասլահաթե։ Ազգին ալավլով կտրե, որ ամեն ինչ ոչինչ չկնե։ Հարցիր, թանկը վաժան արա, ամեն ապլեհ չի կագնե։ And I'll read the short translation in English. Always makes me smile, this poem. My heart has broken up and spilled and put its contents up for sale. Come, dearest, come and make a bid. Name a good price, for if you fail to make a purchase, look, some other men might buy my treasures, knowing not their worth. So token haggle, buy each little thing, so no one else can own me on this earth. So this is a good tip from Kuchak, how to deal with broken heart. Second poem is very different, and we talked about this with Lola. So one of our mottos at Armenian Institute is keeping Armenian culture alive. And I think Lola feels very strongly to bring a lot of underappreciated, underrated, forgotten poems, poets and poems alive. And this one is from Metakse, who was a Soviet Armenian poet. A very interesting character herself. I discovered recently that she used to be a sailor. Politically very active. I remember seeing her in '88 during Krapar movement on the steps of opera, among everyone, not being afraid of the government or anything. And this poem touched me by its music, of its language, and by its message, somehow reminding me of Valjean Sandastan, which we will hear later on. It's called, I'll read the Armenian, Eastern Armenian version, and I think there is no translation, unfortunately. It's a wish for New Year's night. It's almost like a blessing. Թե աշխարհում փակ դռներ կան, թող բացվեն այս գիշեր, ու նոր տարին նոր խնդությամբ, թող ներս մտնի այս գիշեր։ Թե կան դատար, քամր տներ, մանկանճիչով թող լցվեն, ով փնտրում է սրտանց մեկին, հանկարծ գտնի այս գիշեր։ Թե կան լացող տխուր աչքեր, թող ծիծաղեն այս գիշեր, կանչող ձեռքերն իրար հասնեն, հրաշք ապրեն այս գիշեր։ Թե կան սրտեր չանտնախանձով դառնան բարի ու ներող, եւ ուրիշի ուրախ կյանքով խանդավառվեն այս գիշեր։ Թե մոլորված անցորդներ կան, դարձի թող գան այս գիշեր, սրբագործված սիրով մտնեն իրենց օջախն այս գիշեր։ Թե կան բախտի փշոտ ճամփեք, թող ծանկունքով կանաչեն ու երջանիկ սպասումով բոլորն արվեն այս գիշեր։ Թե աշխարհում բանդուխտներ կան, թող տուն դառնան այս գիշեր, հայրենական հավերժությամբ ողջագուրվեն այս գիշեր։ Thank you and happy birthday, Armenian Poetry Project.
Thank you. I'll be reading the works of two individuals who may be very different from each other, but I found out recently while doing research that they were both published in Izmir in 1913 in a journal called New Literature. I thought that was rather interesting. Daniel Valjean was born in Eastern Turkey, today's Eastern Turkey, studied in Bolis, in Venice, and then finally in the University of Ghent. Then he returned home and was a teacher. He was one of the victims of April 24. While the second individual whose work I'm reading is Haigan Ushmak, who was a feminist writer, an editor born in 1883, who died in 1966. And I thought it was very interesting that I found them together after choosing them for today's program. Daniel Valjean, Antastan. Antastan is the ritual of blessing the four corners of the earth. Արևելյան գոմն աշխարի, խաղաղություն թողլա, ոչ արյուններ, քրտինք հոսին, լայն երագին մեջ ագոսին։ Ու երբ հնչե գոչնագն ամեն քյղագի, օդներկություն թողլա։ Արևմտյան գոմնաշխարի պերիություն թողլա, ամեն աստղե ծող գայլագի և ամեն հասկ սուլե ոսկի, և ոչխարներն երբ սարին վրա արածին, ձիլ ու ձաղիկ թողլա։ Հյուսիսային գոմնաշխարի արադություն թողլա, ոսկի ծովուն մեջ ծորյանին, հավետ լողաթող կերանտին, և լայն ամպարն աղուներուն և բացվի պերգություն թողլա։ Հարավային գոմնաշխարի բդղապերում թողլա, ձաղրի մեղրը պետակներուն, lost my ծաղրի մեղրը պետակներուն, հորթի քինին բաժակներուն, ու երբ թխեն հարսները, հացը բարի, սիրեղկություն թողլա։ At the eastern part of the earth, let there be peace. Let sweat, not blood, flow in the broad vein of the furrow, and at the toll of each hamlet's bell, let there rise hymns of exaltation. At the western part of the earth, let there be fecundity. Let each star sparkle with dew, and each husk be cast in gold. And as the sheep graze on the hills, let bud and blossom bloom. At the northern part of the earth, let there be abundance. In the golden sea of the wheat field, let the scythe swim incessantly, and as gates of granaries open wide, jubilation let there be. At the southern part of the earth, let all things bear fruit. Let the honey thrive in the beehive, and may the wine run over the cups. And when brides bake the blessed bread, let the sound of song rise and spread. Translated by Tato Sonens. Հայգանուշ Մարկ, ինչպես։ Ինչպես սիրեմս կեզ սիրելիս, որ սերս լա միշտ դևական ու դարբեր, ինչպես սիրեմս կեզ իմ հոգիս, որ նմանը չրածը լան ուրիշներ, ինչպես, ըսե, երազեմ կեզ, որ հոգնած, չձանրանան աչկերս արթուն ու ծած, ցայներն չվրդովեն հանքիստ կուն, և պտնեմ կուն, ինչպես կկվեմս կեզ սերովս բոլոր, որ նախանցին սյուքերը ձիլերն ալ ոլոր, ինչպես կազմեմ դարերը սիրույս կրագին, որ հոն բոլոր իղծերս ալ որփոքին, ինչպես ըսեմ, թե չաստված մեզ թում, կամ անգե ավելի վեր, հոգիմը վար գրագե անցնվեր, ինչպես, սակայն ինչպես սիրեմ կեզ, անուշ սիրագան, որ սա խեն սերս լա հավեդ դևագան. How can I love you, my dear, so my love remains constant and different? How can I love you, my soul, as no one else has done? How? Tell me, as I dream of you tired, my eyes not growing heavy and low when awake, voices undisturbing the rest, quiet as I fall asleep, how can I envelop you with all my love? So the breeze and the twirling sprouts are filled with envy. How do I build the elements of my love's fire so that there all my desires ignite? How can I say to you that you are godly, or maybe even better, a soul bright with fire, devoted? However, how can I love you, sweet lover, so that this mad love lasts forever? And our next reader is Kakik Stepan Sarkisian.
Thank you very much, Lola. Can you hear me? Thank you, Lola, for inviting me to be part of this celebration. Congratulations on the 15th anniversary of your project. My name is Gagik. I'm the librarian and research advisor at the Armenian Institute. I also teach East Armenian at AI. I live in Greater London. Lola asked me to mention what my preferred profession is, and as a retired biochemist, research in life sciences remains my preferred profession. The poem I'm going to read is by Harut Kostandian. He was born in the port city of Bushehr in southern Iran in 1909 and left the country aged 10 with his family and studied at the English College in Bombay. He eventually settled in France and started writing poetry there. You will find the English translation of this poem in the brochure. To me, this is like an expanded Robai by Omar Khayyam. There are the usual suspects of wine, a lover, and heaven and hell. Harut Kostandian, Utur ins mi bajag gini. Utur ins mi bajag gini. Ur tapele arev nirhur. Nachkan ore gisher lini. Yek siruhis bajagatur. Nur prismakova bajaki gereskuchane tzolke didem. Nemani demke threshtaki satana est teyev gidem. Yek siruhis letsur bajagn shirtnerit vart noze tsogov u shirtnerit hampuyri agn tog kachzrana nayev ginov. Hampuyrt lini tog gine ham ar jananank menk gehenin. Բայց համբույրովը թե չարփենամ, չմեղադրես ազնիվ գինին. Thank you.
It's one of my favorite poems. It made me smile. The next reader is Olivia Katranjian.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lola, for including me among these readers. It's really an honor. Today I'm going to read two poems. The first is by Shahan Shanur, who was an Armenian poet born in Istanbul in 1903. He moved to Paris and began publishing work under the name Armand Lubin. Interestingly, he after he changed his name, he garnered a lot of acclaim and received many literary awards. The poem I'm going to read is from one of his many collections. This one is called Les Hautes Terrasses, or The High Cage. One thing to know about him when listening to the poem is that he suffered from a bone disease and his home. I have been asked to read this in French first. Please forgive my New Jersey accent. Sans rien autour by Armand Lubin. N'ayant plus de maison ni logis, plus de chambre où me mettre, je me suis fabriqué une fenêtre sans rien autour. Fenêtre encadrant la matière par le tracé de son contour, elle s'ouvre comme la paupière, se ferme sans rien autour. Se sont dépouillés les vieilles amours, mais la fenêtre dépourvue de glace gagne les hauteurs, elle se déplace avec son cadre étonnant, qui n'est ni chair ni bois blanc, mais qui conserve la forme exacte d'un œil parcourant son sillé, l'espace soumis, le temps rayé. Et je reste suspendu au cadre qui file. J'en suis la larme la plus inutile. Dans la nuit fermée, dans le petit jour, il s'ouvre à moi sans rien autour. Here's Lola's English translation. With nothing around. No longer having a house or dwelling, no more rooms to put me in, I built myself a window with nothing around. Window framing material, its outline traced. It opens like an eyelid, closes with nothing around. Stripped of old loves, but a window free of glass. It gains heights, it moves with its astonishing frame, which is neither flesh nor white wood, but which keeps the exact shape of an eye browsing without blinking, space exposed, time erased. And I hang on to the frame as it goes by. I'm its most useless tear. In the closed darkness at dawn, they open up to me with nothing around. The next poem I'm going to read is a favorite of mine. It's by Diana Derhovanesyan, a New England-born poet who is the author of over 25 books of poetry and translations and several plays. She received awards from the National Endowment of the Arts, Poetry Society of America, the Penn Columbia Translation Center, and many, many other prestigious institutions. William Saroyan called her a rare and awesome talent. I'm going to read her poem, Thanksgiving, from Songs of Bread, Songs of Salt, published in 1990. It was originally printed in Yankee magazine, and it won the World Order of Narrative Poets Sonnet Award. Thanksgiving begins with a line by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Love is not all, it is not food nor drink. Nor is food love, but palate's sport alone. Even with ceremony, without toast or vow, it is just means of keeping flesh on bone. But table and altar are confused somehow. We substitute our food again for rites of love. Look how this buffet sinks with golden fowl, platters of grain, and candles for eyes to drink, for our eyes to drink. Love is not food, but in the name of those with parched throats, who could not eat or pray, whose empty mouths have closed, whose bellies swelled with pain, not meat. We call it sustenance when it is shared, and sharing we call prayer.
Thank you. Our next reader is Shahan Shanur.
Thank you, Lola. Shad Shnoraghalem. Lola Nievies, we go back long time. And I think Arachinoren, Dasnihik Dariara Chepurais, we had the privilege of having the Poetry Project, Armenian Poetry Project, automatically became part of my life for many reasons. Most importantly, became part of my life as a teacher. Back then, in the classroom, my students regularly went into the website and researched on poets, on poems, and they looked for a poem that connected to them, and then they recited it, because we believed, I believed in the classroom, that poetry should be recited. Besides the fact that it should be read, it should be recited. So thank you, Lola, for giving us this tool, this gift, so that our younger generation of Armenians can discover these poets and these poems. My name is Shahan Shanur, and I'm the principal of St. Gregory Hovsepian School in Pasadena. And Lola gave me two poems to read. The first one is Archie Khachig Minasyan of Fresno. Most of you know him as the cousin of William Saroyan. They were both Fresno kids growing up in the early part of this last century. And, you know, the famous William Saroyan was always in the shadow of his cousin, William Saroyan. And the poem that I'm going to read, it's called Becoming Great. And there's a pronoun we in it. We look at Goethe. Start the poem. And the we, I can almost imagine we being William Saroyan and Archie Minasyan walking together in San Francisco, because at some point they lived in San Francisco together. And I can just imagine them walking through Golden Gate Park and looking up at the statue of Goethe and Schiller. And this poem is, as they're looking at the statue, this is what Archie writes. Becoming great. We look at Goethe and Schiller, huge bronze statues in the park. And we think someday we'll be like them. You, Goethe, and I, Schiller. Then, through narrow park lanes, we crawl along, solemn and confident, eloquent and witty, ignoring the boys that pass on bicycles and the girls in shorts carrying tennis rackets. And it's just a beautiful moment between these two guys in Golden Gate Park. The next poem I will read, Hayerenov, Ղցանք Heranush Arshagyan. As I did my research on Heranush Arshagyan, I realized that she had such a short, premature life. She died at the age of 18. So by the time she was writing and by the time she got discovered, And it says she was discovered by her teachers as this ferocious writer of Armenian poetry. She died in Constantinople in 1905. This is the poem, beautiful poem called Ըղծանք. Թաշնակ մլոք գուզեի եւ սրահ մգես մթին մատներս այդ թաշնագը խոսեցնել քիտնային ինչ կլար թող թաշնագը մատներուստակ հեծ գլդար մտնաշաղի մեջ մի քով բրչանքով փարակ շողմ արևի թելիգ մոսկի սբրթեր բادرեմ վեր թաշնագիս հետ իմ հուզերս ալ խոսեին ու անիգա թող հեծեր թող թքնչեն գարգամեին իմ մադեր թող իմ ցավես անիգա ալ աստվեր yearning I wish for a piano and a whole half dark my fingers knowing how to make the keys speak if only it could be making the instrument sob under my fingers in the twilight like a decoration the sun's light like a golden thread sneaking up the wall my hopes also speaking through my piano letting them moan trembling my fingers curving letting my pain feel them too thank you Lola and thank you for that beautiful translation.
Thank you. Our next reader is Shake Major Chilingirian.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this. And congratulations on the 15th birthday. So I've been asked to read Silva Kaputikian's poem. Silva Kaputikian needs no introduction, really. She was one of the best-known Armenian writers of the 20th century, recognized as the leading poetess of Soviet Armenia and the grand lady of 20th century Armenian poetry. She is a well-known poet in the diaspora through her many visits and her heartwarming poems. She died at the age of 87 in 2006 and was politically active in Armenia. I had the good fortune, actually, of meeting her in 1983 at my first visit to Soviet Armenia with a group of youth from London. And I was asked to recite one of her poems to her in Armenian. No pressure. She was wonderful. She really was. I was made to stand we were sitting in her living room and I was made to stand behind a chair. She told me that's okay. And off I went. She was wonderful. So it's the only Armenian poet that I've actually met in person, apart from Lola, of course. And at such an age, it was it was a tremendous impression that I left Armenia with. So I'm delighted to be reading this in Armenian. There is no English translation. And the other challenge for me is not to sing, because I know this poem as a song. So I've really worked at not singing. I'll spare you that. Silva Kaputikian, ասում են թե մոռացել ես. So we know, of course, Հովանես Բադալյան's song. Այնպես ամփույթ, այնպես հանգիստ, անցնու ես իմ տան մոտով, մինչ ես ուրիշ տներում իսկ քեզ եմ փնտրում կարոտով. Ասում են թե մոռացել ես, չեմ հավատում իմ անգին. Պարզապես դու հեռացել ես, մոտս թողել քո հոգին. Ասում են թե ինձ դավել ես, չեմ հավատում իմ անգին. Պարզապես դու խռովել ես ու տանջում ես իմ հոգին. Անցնում ես դու ու չես նայում, մինչ ես կանգնած մոլորում, քեզ աչքերիս մեջ եմ պահում ու տանում եմ հետստում. Եվ այնպես հեշտ, այնպես խնդուն, մատնում ես ինձ աշխարհին, մինչ դողում եմ որպես երթում անունդ իմ շուրթերին. Ասում են թե սերը սուտ է, չեմ հավատում իմ անգին. Առանց սիրո տունս ցուրտ է, արի շունչ տուր կրակին.
Our next reader is Arthur Gaizakian.
Thank you so much, Lola. Hey, everybody. My name is Arthur. I live in California. I am a poet. I'm a professor of English, and I work with Lola and Olivia at Yala, who have also become my friends. Congratulations, Lola. What an honor to be here with all of you. I have been asked to read from the work of Maro Markarian. And Maro was, from my research, I found she was an award-winning poet who really needs no introduction. Well known in the Soviet Union, she was born on December 22, 1915 in Georgia and passed in 1999. During the course of her life, she was published widely and had many achievements. She graduated from Yerevan State University in 1938 in the Faculty of Philology. Her first book of poems was Closeness in 1940, and she has published, her work has appeared in several collections. Her poetry has been described from Victoria Rowe as deceptively simple language and images to represent the human condition and emotion. And after looking at this poem, I see that it exemplifies just that. The poem I'm about to read to you is about facing mortality in the face of everything we find important during the course of our very short lives. This poem reminds me of my grandmother because her name was Maro also. And after she passed and we were, cleaning out her stuff, putting them in boxes, I found her unfinished crossword puzzles and her to-do list scribbled in her small journals. It just reminds me that it's the little things we leave behind that penetrate the deepest in the living. And so I will read the Armenian Armenian Poetry and the English translation, I Left All Things, translated by Tatul Sonnets. Armenian Poetry. Armenian Poetry, Poetry yes վաղվան, բայց ետևից էլ վաղ չի մնացել։ Միշտ կարծում էի, թե սկիզբն է դեր ու նոր պիտի գան երգերն իսկական։ Նայում եմ հոգուս, հոգնած ու անսեր, էլ թեթև տող ու տաղ չի մնացել։ Ամեն ինչ թողի, ես վաղվան, բայց ետևից էլ վաղ չի մնացել։ I left all things. I left everything all for tomorrow. Behind it now, I see no new morning. I always believed all was just beginning, and the real songs were soon to follow. I look deep inside, loveless and hollow. There are no light lines or verses to sing. I left all things for tomorrow's spring, yet behind it, there's no new morrow. Thank you.
And our last reader joins us via a pre-recorded video, Nancy Agapian.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nancy Agapian. I live in Massachusetts, and I'm a writer and a professor. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm teaching a creative writing workshop based on the work of Armenian writers, and it's happening at the exact same time. And it's quite a coincidence because I don't think I'd be teaching such a workshop if it hadn't been for the Armenian Poetry Project and Lola's tireless and inspiring work. So I'm there in spirit, and I'm so glad this event is taking place to honor and mark the wonder that is the Armenian Poetry Project. So I'm going to read a poem by Leonardo Alician, who was born in Tehran in 1951 and died in 2005. He was a writer, a scholar, and a translator, and a professor of Complet and Persian at the University of Utah. He published 3 collections of poetry and a book of short stories, and I'm going to read an untitled poem that first appeared in Raft, a journal of poetry and criticism, in 1990. At my birthday parties, we played musical chairs. Whoever was left standing got a big hug from Granny. She knew all too well how it felt to be the last one left alone, standing. Thank you. Thanks, Lola, for all your amazing work, bringing so much poetry with so much heart and soul to the world. We are all so grateful to you.
That was a beautiful closing reading. Khorin Shunor Hagaluchun, to my friends who joined us in this celebration, to Yala and IA for co-hosting this event, putting together the brochure, and spreading the word. This event is a labor of love for poetry, Armenia, its future, and let's stay in touch.
I'd like to thank to everyone. Lola-chan, happy birthday again. I think your warm, amazing personality combined with poetry is just irresistible. I want to say thank you to everyone joining us on Facebook as well. We have lots of people watching on Facebook, commenting, sharing, sending lots of hearts and love. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Go to Armenian Poetry Project's website, read more poetry, support Lola. Go to Yala's website. They have millions of things coming up, competitions, programs, articles, and come to us as well. Armenian Institute's website, we have a lot going on as well, lots of events coming up. And if you haven't had enough of Lola, there is a podcast with Lola on our website. I was lucky enough to sit down with her for a whole half an hour and have her reading poetry just to me, but I'm ready to share it with everyone. Here is the link on our website. Thanks again and keep in touch. Happy birthday, Poetry Project.
I just want to thank Tato and Anushka and Gagik and everyone at the Armenian Institute for making this possible. The Armenian Institute does so much to celebrate Armenian literature, and we are all grateful to you. Lola, congratulations, and I hope this is the first of many such events celebrating Armenian literature. Thank you, Tato.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Lola. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.